Alright guys, welcome back to Live Like Lo. This is Lo, and I know I'm in a different environment this time, but I planned to make this video outside, but then I decided I was going to record in the booth because it started to rain. So I am now in my partner's studio because this was the only place that was quiet enough to make this video. Okay, so I have a bunch of collective messages to get out today, and while I was sitting talking to Source, you know, sometimes we have these moments where we get chomped out because we weren't interpreting messages correctly or whatever. So I had to kind of check back in with Source and make sure that I was kind of moving in the right direction, and I was, but the mindset in which I was moving about wasn't good, so had to deal with that. But in the process, Spirit was like, look, we need to get these messages out, and now's the time. So now we're going to give them. I'm just going to set the space. I'm going to give you the message I've written down, and then I'm going to channel any additional messages that are required. So I hope that you enjoy this, and I hope that this message is what you need to hear at this right moment. All of my messages are timeless as they come to you in your perfect and right timing. Leave what doesn't resonate and take the rest, and I love you. Let's get into it. I call in Archangel Melchizedek. I call brain work. Okay. I call in my higher self, my I am presence, and I call in my ancestors, the ancient ancestors, those of the land, the guardian deities, my Jen, as well as Source itself, the divine masculine and divine feminine aspects. I call forth Archangel Metatron. I call in Thoth, and I call in Enoch and Lord Melchizedek. I call in the rest of my spirit team, as well as any councils that have any messages as it pertains here. So it is done. So I received this message back in March. It was actually 3/3/23, so there's your synchronicity for you. All right, so let's get into it. Open your mind to new ideas and experiences of excitement. You are perfectly capable of going the distance. As a bird flies, you will lift off. You should not need a running start. You shall lift off just by your effort. You shall not fall out of the sky again. Rise and shine, my love. You were chosen for this exact moment. I call that Spirit speak directly through me to elaborate on this message, and that their guides, their ancestors, and their spirit team are able to convey the messages that they can understand perfectly and clearly for their exact and right now moment. So it is. Okay, so let's get into this, because when I first read this, I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful synchronicity, right? The message I received from Source this morning was very much on the same line, which is crazy because this is like 4 months later. But let's see what Source has to say more about this. Some of you have been through a lot, and you've had a lot of false starts is what I'm hearing. And your false starts have a lot to do with the fact that Spirit has been leading you in a very specific direction, and they've been giving you a lot of guidance. And it can be kind of spotty depending on what your gifts are or the way that you receive messages. But here's what I'm receiving right now. Things have been a bit spotty, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, and the past season was very rough. Things may not have been working out as succinct and clear as you might have hoped or as you might have thought they would have. But it doesn't mean that you were doing something wrong, so to say. You've been closing out lessons and cycles for this chapter of your life, and the new chapter is beginning very quickly. A lot of you have not had, I heard, reciprocity. So I feel like there was a lot of relationships, a lot of things where you did not have equal give and take. This point in time in your life is over. You will now start to receive equal give and equal take, which means when you give, you will also receive in an equal energy exchange. Spirit also knows that you are currently in a deficit, which means that that deficit in which you are giving out things and not receiving has been held back. Your receiving has been held back. And the last few weeks, and maybe for those of you who are at the beginning of this entrance into this cycle, for the next few weeks, you will be experiencing the lesson or finishing up the lesson of receiving. Learning how to put yourself into a receiving mode, because now is the time where all of that which was a deficit will now replenish itself to stabilize and then start you in a new path where all things will be an equal exchange. This can sometimes create somewhat of an uncomfortable anxiety within the self, because we have to work on the internal stuff where it comes to scarcity. And Spirit really wants you to see that scarcity itself, where it lies within your physical body, okay? And then in your energetic body and in your mental body. So over these times, and if you have already been experiencing this will apply, right? So you have probably been experiencing this understanding of, in your mind, having a lot of back and forth kind of thoughts. Sometimes you're feeling very in alignment. Sometimes you're able to be right there in that place where your thoughts, your emotions, your actions are all succinct in one line, and you're all moving forward in the right direction clearly and consistently. But in this moment, what is going to happen is sometimes you're going to find yourself thinking thoughts of lack. Well, you can't, and we need to hustle, and you're not doing enough, and you need to do more, etc., etc., etc. But Spirit is saying at this time and in the times in the future, if you find yourself thinking those lack thoughts, just stop. And that sounds really easy, especially for those of us who have a good sense and control over what thoughts we feed. But for those of you who have invasive thoughts, the point is not to stop and then think about the opposite, because that's inauthentic and it's hard to do. What Spirit wants you to do is remove your thought pattern from thinking negatively about the thing you want and shift it into something that is similar to the feeling that you would feel as if you were getting the thing that you want. So, for example, if I really want a new car, but I know right now I don't have the money to get a new car, the mindset that I want to maintain is the feeling of getting a new car. It doesn't have to be exactly pointed at what my manifestation is pointed at. It just has to be in the ballpark of the feeling. And so when you start thinking negatively about getting that car, what you're going to do is shift into something that makes you feel just as good. For example, if you move into watching your favorite show, and in that favorite show, your character drives a really cool car and they just look, they're having such a good time. It might even be your dream car. That right there, that feeling that you get from watching that show, from watching that character experience whatever they're experiencing within their own reality of the context of the show, then that feeling that you're receiving is also contributing to the good in which you ask to come into your life. And Spirit wants you to continue to understand that trajectory. For some of you, this feeling that you've been feeling over the period of time leading up to this now moment has been frustration, annoyance, stuckness, okay? This feeling has to do with the lack of the solar fire in your solar plexus. Your solar plexus right now is tired, which means you need to relax. You don't need to be going out and creating at this time. You only need to give to yourself. So at this time, it is not time for you to give to others. It's time for you to hone your energy for yourself, to call in source energy for yourself, to call forth the angelic energy for yourself, and to do what you need to do in order to love on yourself. Not to judge yourself for what you can't do, what you don't have the energy to do, where you can't go, who you can't be at this now time, but to first love on yourself. Give that compassion to yourself. What you would normally put out into the world, turn around and give it to yourself. Okay? And right now is the time to love on yourself, because the unconditional love in which it takes to manifest something into being is also the exact same energy that it takes to turn around and unconditionally love on yourself. Source is unconditional love. So if you cannot receive the unconditional love of Source and receive the unconditional love of yourself, how do you expect to receive what it is that you're looking for to come through your manifestation? They all carry the same energy. It is just a different manifestation of that energy in your life. So what you want to do is give yourself the abundance in which you deserve by also receiving in abundance the unconditional love of yourself. Now, I hope that this makes sense. Let's see if there's any more messages that they have for you before we round this up. Just a second, y'all. I need to open this door. Like, oh my God, y'all. This booth is like the best for sound, but breathing, not so much. I'm gonna replenish the air in here. Okay, let's see. It's 13:22 on the clock, so 322 might be important to you at this time, or 132. Okay. Are there any more messages as it pertains to this at this time? Okay. So that said, nope, I said it all. So great. Great confirmation. And then the last thing that I want to say to you is your spirit team loves, cares, and honors you daily. Your ancestors and Source are with you at all times, and they love you. Those of you who work with deities, they are reaching out at this time to say, we are so proud of you for finishing up this cycle. And for a very specific person, we're not angry with you. Commune with us and come see us. We miss you. There's some of you who may have been feeling the call to work with your ancestors. And I'm being told that now is the time to start that communion, even if it is only through verbal means or only through libation. If you are a person who is highly earth or water based, I would suggest libation. If you are someone who is fire based, a candle would be your best communion with your ancestors to begin. And for those of you who are primarily air, I would suggest speaking is your best way. Those of you who consider yourself master manifestors through your voice, those of you who consider yourself master manifestors through your feelings would be water, and those through your doing would be fire. At this time, Spirit would just like me to be very serious and tell you that you matter and that you are loved and you are cared for. And yes, there are bad things that happen in life, but you do not deserve to experience them in all days of your life. And the good that you've been asking for is coming, and it is here now. Open your heart to receive it. And open yourself to know that you are so worthy of it and you are enough. I love you. Bye. And definitely come back to check out the next message if it's for you. And the very last thing I would say is if you haven't already, please go to my link in bio, or you can go to anywhere that you listen to music and listen to my full body healing light language song, and it's called Melchizedek 3. My artist's name is The Alchemical Oracle, and I have put a link down in my link tree below, or I also sometimes put my master link there so that you can go check it out wherever works best for you. I love you. Bye.